It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. I'm Matt Barbet. Coming up, together in grief, friends of the woman who was killed along with her daughters in Hertfordshire say they simply can't believe what has happened. Carol Hunt was the wife of racing commentator John Hunt, and she died with their daughters, Louise and Hannah, after an attack at their home on Tuesday evening.
It just feels like the thing of nightmares made of. You can't believe it's real.
The suspect in their deaths, Kyle Clifford, is in a serious condition in hospital. Police are so far unable to speak to him. Also tonight, a manhunt in Bristol after human remains were found in suitcases at the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Police want to find this man. They say he was taken to the bridge in a taxi last night. The driver of that vehicle is helping them with their investigation. Plus, we will be live in Germany as England book their place in the final of the Euros. Thousands of fans are heading to Berlin and asking the question, is it coming home? And we'll be discussing the state of the UK's water system as the watchdog rejects the huge increases to customers' bills that the utility companies are calling for. But if customers don't pay to fix the system, who will? All that to come and more here on the UK Tonight. Good evening, thanks for joining us. Police say they are yet to speak to the man they suspect of being involved in killing 3 women in Hertfordshire with a crossbow, as he is still in a serious condition in hospital. Kyle Clifford was found in a cemetery in North London last night after a manhunt that lasted most of the day. Carol Hunt was the wife of horse racing commentator John and died with their daughters Hannah and Louise. And today the world of racing paused to remember the 3 women, as our crime correspondent Martin Brunt reports.
As the hunt for clues continued, a police guard on the alley where the suspect escaped. A security camera appears to show the suspect walking unhurried towards his car. What could be a crossbow covered up, clamped under his arm, a bag swinging behind him. He's seconds from the house where the 3 women were found dying. He takes his time to load what police believe is the murder weapon. He doesn't look like a man in a rush. Then he's gone. Soon after, the victims were discovered: Carol Hunt and her daughters Hannah and Louise. Less than 48 hours later, mourners joined worshippers at a regular church service in the town. The community came together in its shock and horror. There was some comfort in their shared grief. Among the mourners was Carol Hunt's best friend.
Just a lovely girl. I just can't believe it's happened. It's, like I say, it's a thing nightmares are made of. She was the nicest, kindest, sweetest person that you could ever meet. Beautiful, beautiful person.
How on earth do you comfort people after something like this?
If necessary, say words. Most of the time is just being and allow people to be. And that old adage, a shoulder to cry on. And then it just naturally all unfolds.
Police had appealed for information about a former soldier, Kyle Clifford. He reportedly had been in a relationship with Louise Hunt, who ran a dog grooming business. A day after the murders, Kyle Clifford was detained by police and paramedics in a cemetery close to his North London home. He was taken to hospital, where police said he was being treated for injuries. Armed officers, they insisted, had not fired any shots. He was in a serious condition, and detectives were still waiting to speak to him. They have, they said, recovered a crossbow. The victims were the wife and daughters of Sky horse racing commentator John Hunt. Police were still at the family's home and appealed for anyone with information to contact them. Martin Brunt, Sky News in Hertfordshire.
Speak now to our correspondent Matthew Thompson, who is in Bushey this evening. Evening to you, Matthew. I know people there are still just struggling to come to terms with what happened a couple of nights ago.
Very much so. I mean, you could hear, couldn't you, the pain, the distress in some of those interviews in Martin's piece. And here in Bushy, you can see it, you can read it. The pile of floral tributes behind me has been steadily growing all day as people arrive to pay their tributes. A number of young women have been sobbing openly and being comforted by their friends as they arrive to add their own tributes to the pile. And I've just been reading through a few of the cards attached to some of the flowers, and a few of the messages are really enough to bring a lump to your throat. Just to read you a few of them. One read simply, "Louise, you were my best friend for 18 years. Your friendship gave meaning to the words girlhood and soulmates." And another read, "I wish none of this was real. I wish I could hug you and tell you how much you meant to me." But painfully, tragically, it is real. And as you say, people here really struggling to come to terms with the sheer horror of it. I mean, even the police in their statement earlier, they used the word indescribable. And I think that really is the prevailing mood here. As another one of the floral tributes read, "There are no words." And as you can see behind me, the police cordon is still in place. There's still a heavy police presence here, and the police statement from Hertfordshire Police that we got this afternoon did warn that the investigations that they're currently undertaking would take some time as they try and piece together exactly how and why this tragedy unfolded.
Matthew, thanks very much indeed. In Bristol, police have revealed details of a man they want to talk to after 2 suitcases containing suspected human remains were found at the Clifton Suspension Bridge. They were found late last night, and this afternoon police released an image of a man that they are looking for. Our West of England correspondent, Dan Whitehead, has the latest.
It is Bristol's iconic landmark, now at the centre of a disturbing police investigation. Officers are urgently searching for this man. Dressed in black, a gold earring and white-soled trainers, he's wanted in connection with the discovery of human remains. Avon and Somerset police responded to a call in Bristol just before midnight on Wednesday after reports of a man with a suitcase acting suspiciously on Clifton Suspension Bridge. They found a suitcase abandoned and shortly afterwards a second suitcase nearby. Inside both, human remains. A discovery that has sparked a major police response with helicopter and Coast Guard deployed. What we do know is that the suspect arrived here at Clifton Suspension Bridge in a taxi. That vehicle has been seized by the police, and the taxi driver in question is helping officers with their inquiries. Tracing the suspect, now a top priority for police.
Officers are currently working to track his movements through CCTV, and I can confirm that we know he left in the direction of Lee Woods behind me. At this stage, we are not aware of any current risk he poses to the wider public. However, if anyone sees him, we advise them not to approach him, and please do call 999 immediately.
This is a wealthy part of Bristol, with its residents left worried.
I never thought... Oh, I'm in so shock, to be honest. I can't talk. Yeah. I'm sorry.
The world's going mad, isn't it, really? Some horrible thing happen every day, doesn't it?
It's horrible. It's really sad news to hear, especially so close and so local.
A post-mortem examination began on Thursday afternoon. It's not known whether the remains belong to one or more victims. For now, a manhunt for a suspect still on the run. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Bristol.
Football now. And it is almost 30 years since David Baddiel and Frank Skinner first sang about 30 years of hurt. You can do the maths. But on Sunday night, football could come home again. The Lionesses won the Euros 2 years ago, of course, and now Gareth Southgate's men have booked their place in the final of Euro 2024. Ollie Watkins, the hero last night, with a real last-minute winner against the Netherlands. Thousands of England fans will now descend on Berlin for Sunday night's clash with Spain. And the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has refused to rule out a bank holiday if England are victorious. From Germany, our sports correspondent Rob Harris has all the news.
Just seeing and hearing them tells you everything.
Southgate, you're the one. You still turn me on.
While they follow England on the emotional roller coaster. The last gasp goals and the hope. Now on Sunday, they'll finally have a trophy to celebrate. fuelled by the doubters at the Euros.
Judge us after the tournament, judge us when it's finished, and we'll see where we're at. And we've got to a final, we can be proud of that, but ultimately that's not why we're here. We're here to win it, and we know Sunday will be tough against Spain. They're a great team. But yeah, we've got one more step to make history.
But the Three Lions have a day less than Spain to prepare to land their first silverware since 1966.
Just remember how England were at rock bottom when Gareth Southgate took charge 8 years ago. Now it's no longer about early eliminations, even without winning a match. This manager has taken the Three Lions to unprecedented highs across so many tournaments. Now he has another shot at finally landing a trophy.
Now fans chasing tickets for the final.
Come on, England, we're going to Berlin! Hey!
Still savouring knocking out the Dutch in Dortmund.
I want to say carnage. Honestly, the feeling, it was just absolutely beautiful.
Just like one of the best feelings of our lives, I think. We just feel so lucky to be here. Ollie Watkins' goal was right in front of us, and it was just, the atmosphere was absolutely insane. Absolutely one of the best nights ever.
And support far and wide is appreciated by England's new super sub-hero.
Just obviously keep supporting us. One more game to go. So their support don't go unnoticed. All the boys see all the videos of them celebrating in the beer gardens and stuff like that. So, yeah, just keep showing us support.
At his old school in Devon, they always felt the striker was destined for greatness.
He was a bit of a cheeky chappy, but what was clear, he was just a really gifted sportsman. The football shone. He was just head and shoulders above everyone. He was like a Rolls-Royce player. So he just had a bit more time than everyone else, and he could do those few extra little bits of skill that other students just, it was a bit beyond them.
Now decisions for Southgate, whether to start Watkins against Spain. And for the Prime Minister, whether to grant a bank holiday to celebrate England's footballers.
It's never in doubt.
Well, we should certainly mark the occasion. I don't want to jinx it. I went to the last Euros finals. I don't want to go through that again. So don't want to jinx anything. We must mark it in some way, but the most important thing is getting it over the line on Sunday.
It's coming on! It's coming on! It's coming!
3 years after coming within penalties of glory, now to Berlin to banish those memories, hoping for triumph after all the years of torment. Rob Harris, Sky News, Dortmund.
Well, Rob is in Weimar this evening. Good evening to you, Rob. Listen, we spent weeks, you and I, talking about England and all the ramifications, and is the manager getting it right? I think us, like a lot of people, have to hold our hands up and say, well, he's got it right. They've got to the final. Are the fans still sort of pinching themselves? Because the performances haven't been stellar, let's be honest.
Yeah, many of the fans here haven't been entertained for all it's cost them coming out here. Some were perhaps doubting Gareth Southgate, but you notice the tide turning. That suddenly they've got faith in his decision-making. Those late substitutions that are paying off. And how many times could you take off a player like Harry Kane and still manage to find the winner? But that's a sign of the depth in this squad that Southgate has, the attacking options available to him, given Ollie Watkins, who's been scoring so often for Aston Villa last season, Cole Palmer doing as he did so often for Chelsea with those goal assists. And it was that contribution that, of course, found the breakthrough to avoid all the pain and anguish of extra time and even penalties again. And it's those options that will give him encouragement as he looks now forward to Berlin and what is a landmark moment for the men's team, a first overseas final. So many thousands of fans now trying to find the way out here to Germany. Those who haven't stayed here, it's pretty hard to have been out here all 4 weeks or so. You've got the ports that are going to be busy, the roads for those coming by road, all the flights being taken up, and Berlin, you can imagine, is going to be pretty intense, packed with so many England fans hoping to finally see that first trophy since '66 and right those wrongs of the penalty shootout pain of 3 years ago to finally do what the Lionesses have already done, of course, and become European champions. But it's back to the probably training ground tomorrow for the Three Lions with Gareth Southgate as they try to find that winning formula against a Spain team that have won all 6 games here so far.
Yes, although I think I'm right in saying, Rob, that no team has ever won all 7, which could be a good omen for England.
yeah, searching for all the good omens there. And of course, the tournament only became a 7-match one from 2016. That, of course, is that tournament very much to forget for England, the Iceland humiliation. Although, intriguingly, the Iceland manager back then is now the Ireland manager. In fact, he was unveiled today, and he backed England to win the trophy. So perhaps that's an encouraging sign for England. And he said the results have been ground out, but they've found the way to produce wins. And what an incredible win it was last night. And being talked about so much, you saw Ollie Watkins' old school there. His journey from playing in the 6th tier, even still in the Football League 4 years ago, right the way through to an England tournament goal scorer and match winner.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Rob. Some real lower league experience among the squad. Rob, good to see you, and we'll speak soon. Thank you very much indeed. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, I'll be speaking to an England superfan who's followed the team around the world for decades. Never seen them win, of course, but could finally see them pick up a trophy on Sunday. And if you fancy joining him at the last minute, we will find out just how much it could cost you.
Very exciting find. We found approximately 24 individuals, the remains of 24 individuals, and the interesting thing is that they were in both male and females, adults, as well as children, suggesting that we're not, we're looking at a wide range, a large community, rather than just a community of monks, as might have been expected by the particular location of the cemetery. As for those who don't know, Malmesbury was, it was particularly famous in the Middle Age because it's the location of one of the early monasteries, apparently founded by St. Aldhelm in the 7th century. Now, this has been in the historic chronicles for centuries. Medieval chronicles already talk about the monastery, etc., but there's never been any actual evidence of activity, monastic activity, of any kind of activity for this particular period. The same way, there's been, the same chronicles mention a lot of churches in the area where now there are the remains of the abbey. And again, there was never found any evidence of early medieval churches. Now, the presence of a cemetery is highly suggestive of a church nearby. This is what makes these human remains so interesting, so exciting.
OK, we're going to stay with all the Euros excitement now and bring in Miguel Delaney from The Independent, who's already in Berlin. Miguel, good to see you. That name is a bit of a giveaway. I know you're an Irishman, but who called you Miguel? Tell us why.
My Spanish mother.
So who are you supporting on Sunday, then?
Well, of course, I'm here in a professional capacity. So, yeah, Spanish mother, born in Ireland, Irish father, and right for a UK title.
Well, you are. I know you're an absolute pro, so we'll stick to your esteemed analysis of what is going to happen. But for those who aren't familiar with just how well Spain have done and how well they play, and their young talent in particular, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, one stat pretty much says it all. No one in the history of the Euros has 100% record, which at the moment would be 7 games from 7. But previously, up until 2016, was 6 from 6. Spain have won 6 from 6. And they've not just won those games, they have been extremely convincing in pretty much all of them. And also there's the identity of the teams they've played. As they're putting it around the Spanish camp, it's pretty much the giants of the European game. Italy, Croatia, Germany, France, and now England. And in that, you've got the hosts, the defending champions, 2018 World Cup finalists, 2018 World Cup champions, World Cup finalists, and then also England now, the team they have to go and beat to complete this record, who were finalists in the last Euro. So there is a bit of a kind of, well, when you look at the two wingers, a bit of a steam train coming towards England. But as we've seen on the other side, England have very much developed an emotional momentum of their own.
They have, but it's a good point saying the other side, because, look, when England got through the group, some say kind of scraped it through, really. They were unconvincing. They were on the easy side of the draw. You've explained how difficult Spain have had it. So who's got more momentum? Is it England because of their team spirit and their moments of brilliance, or is it Spain because, like you say, they've been a juggernaut against some of the very best sides there is?
Well, there's almost two competing forces there. And I think like both teams would be entitled to feel their name is on the trophy for very different reasons. Again, it's not just getting to the final, it's the manner they get to the final. Spain, for who they've beaten, and they also had their own last-minute winner in extra time against the hosts in Germany, from Marino, the former Newcastle United player. But England, of course, I mean, for all the complaints and debates about England's performance, they did grind through the group stage. But the way they've gone since, I mean, when you do what England have done, first of all, obviously there was this the Slovakia game, last-minute equaliser to actually keep them in the tournament. I mean, had Bellingham not done that, they were out. Then, of course, penalties and the manner they won the penalties, which is very different to the anxiety of previous shootouts the country's been involved in. And then, of course, a last-minute winner from a substitute like Ollie Watkins in the game last night. When you get into those situations, whatever about feeling your name is on the trophy, teams start to just feel that they that this is fated, that no matter how a game goes, they'll always be in it. And yeah, so I think we've got almost these two competing emotional momentums coming up against each other in this final. And that also works in terms of the pure football as well. Because I mean, after the game last night, Southgate was talking about how it's very rare, or historically rare, that an England team would have 60% possession against a Dutch team, given the Dutch history of total football, which actually influenced Spanish football. Now, I don't think he expects to have similar against Spain on Sunday. So there is the danger that Spain exhaust England in the way they've done other teams, just through that constant rotation.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is, England, as we've seen throughout this tournament, have so many quality individuals to bring on. I mean, Southgate could almost, on the Spanish side, they are marvelling at the individual quality of the English team.
Yes.
Not just that, but also England know they can go to distance in all these games given when their goals have come. So even if Spain exhaust them, they've got options and they've got belief.
Miguel, let me finish off by saying, I mean, it's effectively, isn't it, the Premier League versus La Liga. Now, of course, Bellingham plays in La Liga and plenty of the Spanish players play in the Premier League. But it is the clash of the two biggest football leagues in the world.
Yeah, and there's probably a little bit of an interesting dynamic there as well. I mean, because in Spain now as well, they just talk about how the Premier League has superseded it. Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga, he talks openly about how the Premier League might be the #1 league for decades now because of its immense financial power. Now, that hasn't quite translated into international success yet, but Spain, of course, were in a similar position. La Liga was undoubtedly the best league in the world around 2008. Barca had won the Champions League in 2006. There was always, obviously, Madrid's great history. Sevilla had started to win Europa Leagues around then,
yes,
as it was. And it was finally in 2008 that they translated all of this into actually international success. And it was from a similar sort of situation with England, where after so many decades of failure, they basically got all their youth systems right and their coaching system right to the point that they began to produce this conveyor belt of talent. And England are almost in the same position now as Spain were in 2008. And of course, there was the Euro 2020 final, but Southgate has that experience to draw on. But it's an interesting parallel, as you say, between the two leagues.
Well, listen, we're going to put your Irishness to one side for a second. Are you going to go with your British paymasters and back England, or are you going to go with your Spanish mum and the name Miguel and back Spain?
I mean, purely trying to look at this as coldly as possible. If you look at it on purely football, technical and tactical aspects, I think Spain would win.
Okay.
I was even thinking about this game in all the different ways of the gaps that appear. But there's just something about England. As Kane said after the game the other night, they have developed an aura. So I think it's genuinely a 50-50 game from that.
I knew you were going to hedge your bets, Miguel. I knew you were going to hedge your bets. Oh, look, appreciate you joining us and appreciate that insight from Miguel Delaney there. Well, Sunday's match could be the culmination of decades of supporting England for my next guest, superfan Brian Wright, who's in Duisburg with his mates Kevin and John. It is good to see you all. Brian, just tell people watching just how much you've invested in following England for all these years.
So much time, so much effort. I'm not even going to talk about financial, but so much emotion. You know, my first Euros was right here in Germany in 1988. England didn't win a game, didn't get out of the group. But that one goal Graham Robson scored, and the togetherness with the England fans made me want to follow my country. It's been my quest. This is my ninth Euros final. I've met friends for life on the way. Sadly, lost people along the way. My dad, who gave me my passion for football, my uncle Tony took me to my first Euros. But my friend Chris and Trevor and Jim, who we've all lost, who I've been in Euros and World Cups with. But it's a togetherness. It's in my heart. I carried it with me at games, and there's not a better hobby in the world. You know, I met John here on a boat in Qatar at the World Cup, and Kevin, you know, I've been coming with him in there since 2016 Euros, and it's not always been about the 90 minutes or 120 or penalties. I've never I've seen those 8 penalty shootouts, but last night was the first time the final whistle went. I was in floods of tears. I was just overwhelmed by it all, just because it means so much. I apologise. I miss weddings and funerals and birthdays and congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. McCarthy, and also Mr. and Mrs. Watson. They both have weddings. I told them, don't have weddings during the tournament year. But it means everything. Well,
listen, Brian, it's a good point, because a lot of people here are hurriedly sort of changing plans for Sunday. We hear that John Bishop, the comedian, is changing his plans for his gig, and other people are not going to go to gigs and all that kind of thing. But just let me ask you, and look, I appreciate you got your mates there, but I want to ask you in particular, what is different this time? Why is it, and again, you said you're bringing the hopes of a lot of people who aren't around anymore, but why is it more emotional this time? What's different to all those other times you followed England?
Well, just a quick thing about John Bishop. He's Scouse, so he ain't bothered about England anyway. I don't know why he bothered changing his gig. It just feels like it's our time. You know, it really does. And Spain could have 800 complete passes if they want, but we have an own goal or one going off Kane's head in the last minute. We'll take that all day long. You know, it's all about lifting that trophy. The biggest prize in European sport, and we still talk about it. When you were born, we talk about 1966. We talk about 96 and 90 penalties. The whole country's gradually got behind us. You know, we had group stage people moaning, but who's going to remember the group stage in 20 years' time? But they'll certainly remember Harry Kane lifting that trophy.
Let me have a quick word with John and Kevin, because otherwise it just looks like they're your security. John, he says you met him on a boat in Qatar. Is there a sort of special bond amongst the travelling England contingent?
I would definitely say so. Qatar was a little bit different because all the stadiums were within 10 or 20 miles of each other. Yeah. So you could stay in one spot all the time. So we were all together we would meet at like midday or 1 p.m. on the top deck, and they would show the games. And so there was that daily ritual. You don't quite have that here, but on the way to Schalke Stadium in the first match against Serbia, we were walking down the road, and everybody's all right, Patsy, all right, Smithy, everybody, nice. Remembers each other from the previous tournaments, and there is sort of a bond or a togetherness, as Brian has alluded to there.
Listen,
last night it really showed through, because the fans, they really got back. They really got behind the team.
Well, I can tell. Listen, we haven't got much longer, so it means Kevin gets the last word, and Kevin gets to predict what the score will be on Sunday. Kevin, over to you.
I'll go for a 2-1 win to England.
In 90 minutes? In 90 minutes?
Yeah, 90 minutes, yeah. So,
do you know what? That was my prediction last night. That was my prediction last night, and it happened. And it happened. Listen, best of luck to you all. Enjoy the journey to Berlin, and I hope, on behalf of all the England fans who are watching you, that it is a win, and England's men finally lift a trophy for the first time since 1966. Thank you all very much indeed. Well, there's 3 fans already in Germany, but what about those who fancy a last-minute trip? How would they get there? How much would it cost? Probably a fortune. I'm joined now by Daniel Dobransky, owner of the independent travel company Not Just Travel. Go on, Daniel, tell us, what would it likely cost at this late stage to make it to the final in Berlin?
Right, well, still lots of packages available. I mean, I think initially the tickets that are being sold are going for circa £2,700 to £3,000 for a standard category seat ticket. And of course, there are still seats available towards the lower end and more expensive. If you're ready to pack your bags and you're happy to go from Manchester or London tomorrow morning, then we are looking at 2-night packages with your flights and accommodation and tickets. And we're circa around £4,000 per person at this moment in time.
OK. I mean, what would, if you'd have planned ahead and thought, well, England are going to get there to Berlin, I'll go in for the ballot and get a ticket, what would it have cost originally?
Originally, it would have been cheaper as well to actually get there. So you've got a greater choice of accommodation. You've got a greater choice of flight options. The flight options tomorrow, especially from Manchester, would actually be changing in Frankfurt before you get to Berlin. So there's a lot of the direct services are not there or have actually sold out. So a lot of pre-planning. We've seen a lot of people through the Not Just Travel group who have booked to see all of the group stages and are then booking to actually stay further on for hopefully it's coming home the final. Yeah, you've got to take a lot of time off work as well, haven't you? I mean, Brian and his pals that we just spoke to there, I mean, that's a serious time commitment. I think people watching me think, how on earth do they get the time off work? Do they have jobs? Do they quit? What do you hear from customers of yours? Well, what I hear from customers of mine is by hook or by crook, they're going to watch, they're going to... and are they doing the famous pulling a sickie at work? Who knows is the answer to that.
Well, listen, thank you so much for the insight. I mean, I think we'll be contemplating whether we want to drop £4,000 on trying to get there for Sunday, especially when watching on telly is often a better seat. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, changing tack for a bit, the new Environment Secretary says the UK's water companies have signed up to the government's reform plans. On the same day, the regulator blocked their demands for a hike in household bills. Ofwat says bills will rise, but by around £19 a year. That's far short of what the companies say they need to fix the system. So if customers aren't going to pay the full whack, who will? In a moment, I'll be speaking to Clean Water campaigner Fergal Sharkey. But first, our business correspondent Paul Kelso has more.
If you want to swim in the Thames, you need to be braced for more than the temperature. This stretch at Wallingford is newly classified as bathing water, but an industry that's proved better at removing money from the water system than keeping sewage out has few friends among the regulars.
I feel terribly angry. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the right words about what Thames Water's doing in terms of putting sewage into the rivers on a day-to-day basis.
The government should never have allowed the private companies to siphon off profits and pay shareholders without investing in the infrastructure.
Consumers all over the country will soon be paying more for their water after regulator Ofwat released its verdict on company business plans for the next 5 years. Water bills will rise on average by 21% or £19 a year. That's less than the 32% increase companies asked for. Southern Water customers will see the biggest increase. It asked for a 73% hike worth £306. Ofwat limits that to 44%. And troubled Thames Water wanted a 43% hike, but will have to make do with 21%. If a privatised system is to work, companies need to offer a return to investors. And the industry says the regulator's ruling means the money may dry up.
This decision by Ofwat puts our environment and our economy at risk. The recovery of our rivers will be slower, house building will be increasingly blocked, and our economy and the wider growth will not happen as much as we need it to.
The challenge is most acute for Thames Water, which said this week it will run out of money within a year if it can't find fresh investment. Thames Water is drowning in debt, but its customers are often swimming in sewage, and that is a toxic combination for a company that says it needs to hike customer bills to help not just clean up rivers and build new infrastructure, but plug a gaping hole in its finances. The new Environment Secretary, who summoned company bosses to Whitehall, wants Thames to bail itself out.
Nationalising any of the water companies would cost billions of pounds and take years, potentially. I want to get to work quickly to clean up the unacceptable levels of pollution that are so outraging the public when they see it in their rivers, in their lakes and in their seas.
Thames Water is not the only water company that's made money while failing consumers, but it is in the deepest trouble. Up the proverbial creek, and the regulator may just have removed the paddle. Paul Kelso, Sky News in the Thames Valley.
Clean water campaigner Fergal Sharkey joins me once again now. Fergal, good to see you.
Good evening.
Listen, the water companies say they want a clean slate. They need the investment. Well, I know, bear with me on this one. They need the investment. They want to spend it between now and 2030 to clean up the mess. And ultimately, whether it was publicly owned or privately owned, it is going to be customers like us who pay for it, right?
Well, here's the thing. Whilst today was a decision about the future of the water industry, it was also a decision about the future of Ofwat. And it was a test that Ofwat failed. To deal with Ofwat first, all we've actually seen is a sleight of hand. And when you look at the numbers and get past the gloss and the spin, I think you'll find in real terms, that figure for Southern Water is actually 60% increase in bills by 2030. Someone like Yorkshire Water, 37%. Thames Water, 35%. And on and on and on. Welsh Water, 40%. So there's nothing going on here at all. Ofwat has proved itself to be utterly incapable. And as for the water companies, let me remind them, they've admitted it. They have a legal obligation to build, operate, and maintain a properly functioning sewage system, and we have already provided them all of the funding they ever needed for 33 years to meet that legal obligation. The truth is, they took £72 billion of our money, gave it to shareholders, £64 billion worth of debt. If anybody needs to pay for this, it should be the water company shareholders, because that's not what they've been doing for the last 33 years.
But we've seen, haven't we, with Thames, for example, they don't necessarily want to dip into their pockets and pay for the asset that they bought to keep it as a going concern.
Well, in that case, they can hand the keys back, because let's face it, who does not want to be able to run a monopoly, a state-granted monopoly supplying drinking water to 15 million people? It's a no-brainer, it's an easy business, but the reality is, while claiming poverty, asking for leniency, not 5 days ago they paid £156 million in dividends to shareholders and paid a chief executive £195,000 bonus for 3 months' work. So they're still at it, they're still out of control, and Ofwat's proved utterly ineffectual in trying to discipline them and bring them under some kind of control and make them deliver. In fact, simply make them comply with the law.
There is a new government in place now. The Secretary of State responsible wants to get things cleaned up and get things cleaned up quickly. What do you think the government is most likely to do? Because, I mean, water cropped up a lot, because you and I talked about it a lot during the election campaigns, and the parties all seem to have a point of view on it. So what do you think is realistically going to happen now from a government point of view?
Well, clearly sewage and the environment did become a massive election issue. In fact, there's any number of new MPs, but across the House, the Lib Dems, for example, 63 MPs, more than the last Parliament. They campaigned heavily on sewage and the environment. What government needs to do at this point in time is intervene and make sure these companies understand Ofwat needs a complete and utter reappraisal, a root and branch review of the regulation and oversight, and I would add the Environment Agency to that list, and it needs to make sure that these companies are not going to get another penny of the public's money, and certainly they do not deserve anything remotely looking like 60% of Southern Water's customers. If these customers and these companies need bailed out, the shareholders are going to have to put their hands in their pocket, because they've simply not been doing that frequently enough, often enough, and indeed, if at all.
Fergal, if the government wanted to, could it pursue the shareholders of these water companies? And let's not forget, there are plenty of different water companies and slightly different models. I think Welsh Water is a not-for-profit, for example. But if the government wanted to, could it somehow force shareholders to cough up instead of customers?
Oh, but it's very simple. I could nationalise these companies tomorrow for a penny and not cost the taxpayer 1 inch. The simple truth is, no matter what the chairman of Thames Water might have you believe, you could nationalise these companies tomorrow and not cost the taxpayer a penny. So we have a choice. Not only do we have to hold these people accountable, we need to gaffer tape them into a chair and chain that chair to the fire to make sure that they actually meet their commitments. The truth is, I'm reliably informed there has not been a single year that the shareholders of Thames Water did not take out more money out of that company than they ever put in. It's time now that they're held to account and made to stop fleecing their customers, fleecing the environment. The truth is, the industry as a whole is financially bankrupt, it's morally bankrupt, and it's environmentally bankrupt, and the regulator sits at the heart of all of that and is probably the cause of most of it.
Fergal Sharkey, thank you.
Thank you.
But if you scan the QR code on your screen that's coming up right now, you can get much more on that story. It's on the Sky News Daily podcast. You can subscribe to the Daily wherever you get your podcasts, of course. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. We'll be looking at NHS waiting lists, which are on the rise yet again. Now, one of the most pressing issues facing the new government is NHS waiting lists, and they have grown yet again. Some 7.6 million treatments and procedures are waiting to be carried out at the end of May, relating to almost 6.4 million patients. Our health correspondent Ashish Joshi reports.
Simon Surgeon.
Simon Gonsalves is preparing his team for surgery.
Going to use a flexible sigmoid disc.
First on his list this morning is a 55-year-old male rectal cancer survivor.
We're looking to go on to improve his quality of life by reversing his stoma.
The NHS waiting list in England has grown again, and this is exactly the sort of life-changing procedure that patients are having to endure lengthy waits for.
It's very important to patients. What we're trying to do is to ensure that this gentleman can then go on to live a normal life after his rectal cancer treatment, after surviving his rectal cancer treatment.
Are you happy that you understand what we're doing today?
Everything, yeah.
Diane knows just how important early intervention is. Her breast cancer was found in June and removed just weeks later.
I've heard horror stories and listened to other people, but this is my first experience of an operation. It's literally been so quick. I haven't had time in between to even think or worry too much.
Calderdale and Huddersfield NHS Foundation Trust has turned one of the longest waiting lists in the country into one of the shortest. And one of the ways it's managed this is by incentivising theatre staff to work at weekends. The Health Secretary wants to repeat the success that this trust has had with reducing its waiting list across the NHS. But the challenge is huge. England has fewer hospital beds, lower numbers of key staff, and spent less on equipment and buildings than other comparable health systems. The new Health Secretary is aware of the challenges. He's ordered an official investigation into the state of the health service.
The NHS is broken. The issues that we've been talking about during the election campaign, the waiting lists, ambulances not arriving on time, people queuing around the block to see a GP, not being able to find a dentist, all of that is evident.
But much of his ambition relies on an exhausted workforce to step up again. Describing the NHS as broken might not help. When the Health Secretary says the NHS is broken or wrecked, is that useful language for you?
What I see on a day-to-day basis is that we provide some really excellent services for patients, and we get feedback that tells us as much. There is a challenge with morale, but I think it's about focusing on how we can create safe work environments.
Diane's cancer has spread to her lymph nodes, and this, her second operation inside a month, will remove it. A national health service that, when it works properly, is saving and changing lives. Ashish Joshi, Sky News in Huddersfield.
Coming up here on the UK Tonight is not just England's footballers who are finding their form as Jimmy Anderson and Ben Stokes edge England's cricketers towards an emphatic win against the West Indies. And comedian John Bishop says he's clocking off early for the Euros final on Sunday.
Tonight on The World with me, Dominic Waghorn, a bombshell for Joe Biden with reports his own campaign officials have turned on the president. Is the writing on the wall, and who would replace him? I speak live to a strategist who worked for Vice President Kamala Harris. Join me at 9.
Jennifer Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
It's turning everybody into, a crazy, violent drug addict.
How are you feeling? I am angry. Are you a hypocrite, sir? Will your candidates win?
I hope so.
I gotta be realistic. My sister's dead.
More than 4 weeks on, there's no murder weapon and no suspect. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
You're so excited.
Severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
I've watched as whole towns were torn apart by natural disaster.
I'm alive and I'm thankful for that.
We take you to the heart of the stories which shape our world.
A lot of cases that I know are reported from Ukrainian missiles themselves.
Ambassador, with respect, I think that's preposterous.
Coming up, we will be talking about hastily rearranged plans for Sunday night's Euros final. Sorted myself out. Dharmesh is here with the sport now, though, first. And we'll leave the football there for the time being, Dharmesh. Let's talk about England's cricketers, because it's the first test against the West Indies, and it has to be said the Windies are seriously struggling.
They are. I'm still trying to sort out my plans for Sunday, by the way.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. England are dominating this test match. A fitting farewell as well for James Anderson, his final ever test match for England. They just need 4 more wickets tomorrow morning and it should be over within 2.5 days. We can have a look at some of the action now. England made 371 in the first innings. That's a lead of 250, and that was a bit of history. Ben Stokes, the England captain, became only the 3rd man in Test cricket to complete the double of 6,000 runs and 200 wickets. He joins legends Sir Garfield Sobers and Jacques Kallis in that elite list. And then Jimmy Anderson took centre stage. He added 2 more wickets in his final test for England. He is now on 702. I think the England fans will be hoping that can go up to about 706 tomorrow if he can take all 4. But while Anderson exits the stage, have they already uncovered his replacement? Because with the final ball of the day, England got their 6th wicket. Jason Holder fell. Gus Atkinson on debut added 2 more wickets to the 7 he got on his debut in the first innings. The West Indies closed day 2 79 for 6. They are trailing by 171. It's in the bag, I think, for England. So a very good day for England. And aside of what's happening at Lord's, some other sport happening today as well.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Welcome to the Red Bull Technology Campus. In 15 months' time, they will be running an engine in F1 that they have built here. Are they ready?
3 years ago, this place was a building site. Now it's a fully functioning power unit, design and manufacturing base.
Any of you guys from Mercedes before coming in? Yeah.
Of a total staff of approaching 500, 220 engineers and other staff were recruited from the Mercedes Brixworth engine operation. Okay. Ford have also contributed personnel and are already manufacturing parts and supplying test systems. They plan to do more. For Ford, it's a return to F1, having sold their Jaguar team to Red Bull in 2004. Their global head of motorsport performance is Mark Rushbrook.
Well, it was clear even then, right, the mission that you were already on before we joined, and complementing with, I think, the right resources that we can bring to it to carry it on. And Christian Hertrick and I are here about once every month, once every 6 weeks, and you can visibly see the improvements and the iterations of the hardware every time we're here.
This was the first engine the Red Bull factory produced. Late Red Bull owner Dietrich Mateschitz heard it fire up before he passed away. Every power unit serial number from now on will carry his initials. Power units for the 2026 season will be 50% internal combustion.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Dharmesh, thanks a lot. Time for a quick look at the weather now. Could it save the Windies? Probably not, because tomorrow looks rather cool and unsettled, but there will be some improvements on Thursday. Before then, central and southern Scotland and Northern Ireland will be wet this evening. I think we meant Friday there, by the way. All remaining areas will be fairly cloudy with the chance of showers, some heavy and potentially thundery. Scotland will see increasingly showery rain taking over all except the northwest tonight. Now, many of you will be changing your plans for the final of the Euros, which kicks off at 8 o'clock on Sunday evening. But how many of you can say that you're affecting the plans of more than 3,000 other people? Well, comedian John Bishop can.
There's a message to all the people coming to Wolverhampton on Sunday. I'm not doing the show at 8 o'clock. The show's going to get moved to the afternoon. You're all going to get an email in the morning telling you the time. I know it won't suit everybody, so anyone who can't make it will give you a refund. But we're definitely going to move the time to Sunday afternoon because there's no chance I'm going to be doing it at 8 o'clock because I'm going to be busy watching these boys.
That told them. Well, the venue, the Halls Wolverhampton, says the gig will now start at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And John's put out a statement on their website saying, when Gareth Southgate didn't pick me, I didn't think I would be watching the Euros. But like everyone else, I have been caught up in the tournament. It is brilliant that England are in the final, and to avoid people having to decide if they can watch the match or the show, we are moving the show timings so we can all go home and watch it. Football's coming home, and so am I. Put very nicely from the Liverpool fan, John Bishop there. That's all from the UK tonight. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. Up next, join Dominic Waghorn with The World. We'll be back on Monday night at 8. Until then,